Hello, this is Jay Denson of Fit Health Well, and we have another episode here. My guest today is Jessica Marie Rose Leggio, and she has quite the impressive resume. As you guys know, I've had people from all walks of life within the health and wellness industry, and someone that I haven't had an opportunity to speak with and provide you as my listeners with is someone that can speak to injuries, and she has expertise in corrective injury. And amongst other things as well. But we're going to get into that and have her speak to pretty much what her experience is, and then the services that she provides as well. But I'm very, very excited to have this guest, and I'm very thankful that she took time today to speak with us. So, Jessica, you have the floor. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be on here and help more people.
Absolutely. And that's what it's about, right? Like that's our show initiative, is to, just produce content, meaningful content, that just helps people and inspire people. So thank you for being a guest and just continuing our model that we have here in our mission. So yeah, I want to get into your background a bit and just let everybody know a little bit about yourself and your experience.
Okay, well, I am a sports biomechanics, athletic injury correction, and conditioning expert. And that's a very mouthy because I've done a lot. So I'm a functional movement systems expert. I'm a national spotlighted expert for functional movement, which is basically the grandfather of all functional movement for even the healthcare system actually recognizes them. I was trained by the founders of it, and I was part of the rollout for Equinox for New York City. I used to work for Equinox. I was a top trainer there. I have a nutrition biology background. I've been studying nutrition for over 25 years, probably longer than that. And biomechanics is something I've been studying, honestly, since I'm 3. I was a dancer at 3, and I was a teacher by the time I was 12, and a choreographer at 13. So body movement has to be known to be able to do those things. So it's something I've had in a very big nature with. And so training just is very natural for me to train. I have kettlebell certification, stretch. I have pre and postnatal I'm certified in. Everything under the sun I'm certified in. So I kind of bring everything together with the sports biomechanics, which is the study of understanding how somebody got injured and then how to correct it. And then functional movement systems is a corrective aspect of that. So I bring it all together and fix everybody that way. And nutrition is something that I actually do the same on the inside as I do on the outside. I get the inside processing food properly, just like I get the outside processing movement properly. Same thing, same principle. And I've been doing that for years. And I did do a lot of work with Beachbody. I was one of the creators of Insanity the Asylum. I worked directly with Shaun T, and then I was the managing trainer for test groups for Insanity the Asylum, Brazil butt lift, and hip hop abs, which means it's a controlled setting, and I had about 200 people at different times, and I was able to not only be there to make sure they weren't getting injured and following plans, but I was able to test my nutrition plan with them and how it processes, and I have real human case studies on that. So I know what it can and can't do. And there's very little it can't, but I have proof from that. So I really do bring all that into Run Pain Free is, and Run Pain Free is the company name. RunPainFreeNow.com is the site. And we also have an online community for Run Pain Free, which is an academy. So we are international and we are national even outside of New York City. We've been doing that for over 10 years. And so it's an all-encompassing company to help any and everybody who wants to run for life and run with no pain. And it's not about just running the next race. It's about employing a healthy lifestyle all around and addressing your problems, not skirting around them and dealing with them, confronting them, so that you can run as long as you want and be active as long as you want and not dictated by any injury. So that's why it's all-encompassing.
That's great, and we're definitely going to start. Thank you. Great, like a great segue into my first question. That I want to get into the injury portion first. So you spoke about rain pain free, and it was something I would see when I was living in New York a lot of time too, because a lot of my runner friends was using the hashtag, and I was like, "What is this run pain free?" And so anyone that's listening to this for the first time, and I know it has to do with injuries and things like that, just give us an example of the type of services that you do provide for runners.
Okay, so I have worked with every and all injuries under the sun, from basic knee pain to breaks. It really doesn't matter. Is everything is really based on a movement pattern. So years ago, I used to say all injuries are created by an imbalance unless you have direct impact. And thousands of case studies later, I say all injuries are created by an imbalance, even with direct impact. So I was hit by a truck as a pedestrian. So I am a product of what I do. I was already this when I got hit, but I was also, when I worked for Equinox, I was also a PT aide in physical therapy office. So there's an office inside most gyms in Equinox here in the city. And so I would train in the morning and then go spend my afternoons at PT and was the aide there. And then I'd go back out and train with my other clients. And I got hit by a truck during that time. And I had 51 MRIs. Was working with doctors and nobody could help me. And I didn't know that functional movement systems and correctives and all that was actually something that could help me. You know, I think, oh, I need a doctor like everybody else. And that just wasn't the case. And one day the doctor just looked at me and was like, I have no idea where your pain is coming from. And that impacted me so much. Like, you know, what do you do at that point when a doctor says that to you? And it's someone that, you know, was like just blowing smoke at me, you know? So at that point, I kind of started to give up. And it was a year into my pain that my training partner and I were like, let's just see if what we know actually helps. And within minutes, we realized where my pain was coming from was not where I was in pain, and immediately went into a correction workout phase for the next 4 months, twice a day. Within 4 months, I had 80% range of motion back, and my pain was gone. I mean, I have serious injuries head to toe. So no one's I've ever dealt with has been worse than me. But I love challenges, so I'm good with that. But I had separated my shoulder. I have no more acromion process. The bone still punches out. I had an in-shoulder impingement. My collarbone shifted. I broke my hip, not a stress fracture, an actual fracture. Those are different. I broke my hip. I chipped the top off of my femur where the hip and the femur connect. I had all 5 of my lumbar discs hugely bulging right now, even still. I had the SI joint dysfunction. I had both hips impinged, sprained my knees, and then I had extreme back pain after that all settled in. So I head to toe had pain, and there was just no day I wasn't going to have pain. And I was still a trainer at the time, and I'm very physical with my people. So it was really hard to do my job and live life with that level of pain. And so finding out where it was rooting was how I was able to figure it out. And so from that moment on, I became one of the go-tos for injury for Equinox. And then I moved on from it and started really doing our own thing. And we came out of it and started our own company thereafter. And we really focused on finding the root of the injury. So pain is just where the result is, doesn't mean that's where it's coming from. And that's an always statement. Anybody listening to this, pain is just feedback. Not all pain is bad, but all pain is feedback. And once you actually start to understand what those pains are saying to you, it'll help you map your body back to what's going on. I can map an injury back to a 5-year-old injury to someone who's 50. So it doesn't matter what else happened after that happened on dysfunction. So that building happens. You build muscle and dysfunction. You build movement patterns that are all compromising patterns, and all that creates an issue. So we basically strip the body back to baseline and then rebuild it properly. And so we've dealt, runner's knee, there's no such thing. It's really just your IT band that's pulling on your knee, really from your hip. Your hip is in dysfunction. That's the baseline. Plantar fasciitis is probably the number one injury we work with, which is also, I say, BS. Anything that I say is BS is because it's super fixable, but it's a big money maker, and people will be with doctors or PT for years and years and years with this, and shots and braces and this and that, and it's all just making it actually much worse, especially stability sneakers, which I'm very known to talk about. And there's a lot of these external factors that keep runners injured. And I talk about this a lot. My degree is marketing, so I know it's entertainment marketing. So I'm also trained to see through that level of billion-dollar industry as well. And I kind of come from that place when I talk to people, and I'm like, look at it. You guys keep this industry going as long as you're not educated on what's happening. So I want to give that education. So I have a healthier runner in front of me, and I have an educated runner in front of me who can help other people as well. Because a lot of these external things that runners just grab and put on them, and it's making them much worse. The braces, the tape, and all that stuff, it just makes it worse because you're just smothering the real problem by basically, shutting your body up when your body's just talking to you. And so what I do is I explain what's going on through the body's movement. just by watching somebody. I can do it online, I do it in person, and we really teach people what their body is saying, literally. And then through movement, I can talk to you all day, but if you feel what I'm saying, that's a different story. And so I let the body tell you what I'm telling you. You feel it differently. And so torn hip labrums, huge that I deal with. Stress fractures out the wazoo, from femoral stress fractures, hip stress fractures, all types of metatarsals, tibias, fibula stress fractures, big deal. Foot pain, arch pain, hamstring strains. Most men will strain the meat. Women will strain up underneath the glute muscle. It's very different depending on the person. If you're a heavier treadmill runner, you're going to be higher risk for hamstring issues. Shoulder pain, huge for runners, because the IT band connects at the top of the shoulder and goes across to the opposite hip and then down the leg. People think it's just outside their knee and their hip. No, it crosses and goes the other side, and it attaches you right to left. So if you're not foam rolling, which is the gateway to your body's movement, if you're not foam rolling, you're never going to have any chance at fixing any ache or pain you have, because the tissue's job is to protect you. So there's a lot of basic stuff that goes with just like kind of backdooring your body and figuring out where it's pocketed. And when you foam roll, you'll be like, oh, I didn't know I was in pain there. And it's like, yeah, you were, that's part of the problem. There's a big old junk going on over there. And so really just baselining, it's not an answer, but it's the third to the answer. Foam rolling is the gateway to figuring it out. And so we teach the foam rolling properly. We teach how to deactivate the wrong muscles to activate the right muscles. And then we athletically condition you at that point. When someone is in pain, if they run to a gym, it's one of the worst things they can do, because you will build your muscle in dysfunction. So the first thing a runner feels, clamshells. Everybody does this stupid move. I don't know why anybody does this move. I really don't. It aggravates me beyond end. And then it's even worse when they add a band to it and put pressure on it. It's just the weight on your hips. To add weight to that, your knees alone are weight, but then you add weight to it and then you want to open it up. There's really no real hip muscles, if you will. They're glute muscles that wrap around. Mm-hmm. So when you're trying to force that level of weight on the hip joint and then force it up, when the joint's in dysfunction because the glutes don't fire, you're asking for a torn hip labrum. You're just asking for it. You're asking for strain on your knees for no reason, because there's never anything wrong with your knees. It's the hip is in dysfunction and it refers down. That's it. And then the muscular expression of that is your hamstring overworking in dysfunction. Sidebar, nobody on here has tight hamstrings. No one has tight hamstrings. They're all in dysfunction because your butts don't work. And as long as the butt doesn't work, your hamstring comes into play and it's stabilizing you while the butt's just hanging out doing nothing. As soon as the butt starts to fire, all of a sudden your hamstring extends and now you have range on your run. Now you have an open gated run and you have more control on the hill and you have more power on the hill. But that's never going to happen if your butt doesn't fire. And you can squat till you're blue in the face. Doesn't mean your butt's activating. It means it's also going to go to your quads. The body is amazing and it consistently compromises every time you say, hey, I want to do this move. And the body's like, but you can't do that move. But you're like, well, I want to do it. The body's like, all right, fine. Everybody else, can you do it? Because like, I'm not doing this today. And so all these other muscles come into play and they overdevelop. Quad dominant, very big thing people hear all the time. Oh, you're quad dominant. You have really, really big bowed out quads, nothing on the backside. That's because your butt doesn't fire, so everything is forward. So all this extra weight is forward. Well, now that pulls on your hips. When it pulls on your hips, it pulls on your low back. So then everybody has that big arch in their back and they're told they have anterior pelvic tilt. No, you have a very tight psoas, which is on your spine. Really, one muscle you don't want to mess with is your psoas. Nobody talks about it. Nobody gives it airtime. It's tight hip flexors. It's all this superficial talk to real rooted stuff. And Run Pain Free finds the root. Because as long as you're dealing with the superficial stuff and the muscle stuff, you'll be there all day. So 90% of our runners come from PT, chiropractors, 90% of them, because they've been there for a long time and it's just skirting around the issue. For whatever reason it is, and that I'm not saying that's their best, it's we do different things. When it's a mobility issue, that's us. That's a biomechanics person. That's a movement person. PT is rehab. Once they get them moving, they should be sent to someone like us. And that's unfortunately, there's a lot of ego in this industry, so that doesn't happen often. But I have a lot of PTs that are like, all right, can you take them now? Or I have trainers that are like, Jess, can you get this person fixed and bring them back? Because they understand the difference. We all have different levels in this business. But when you're talking about injuries, if you're not trained in an injury and you're not trained in in the mechanics of the body, you really can hurt somebody. And I get it all the time from people. I get so many people at their wits' end who've gone through all of the paces and all of the types of medicine they can find with no help. And then within a week, they're feeling better because we go to find the root of it.
Exactly. And you definitely know what you're talking about, because I did when I was at New York Sports Club and I did the certification for personal training prior to me leaving, I would always see the terms about the anterior pelvic tilt as well, right? And then also the runner's knee, which I later learned, and I'm glad you touched on that, was BS, right? Like, we have a lot of terms, and what I gathered and what I got from the conversation as well too is, like, even something simple, like you said, the common person would think, oh, well, I'm hurting here, so this is where it must be at, and there's underlying problems to it. And what I value with the information that you just gave us is that, what we don't seem to realize, and I think especially in this health and wellness profession, is that a lot of times we one specialization bumps head with another specialization, right? And us as runners, or whether we're a runner or you're working out, our needs aren't being addressed. And you're able to do that, like you said, by like looking at the body and the body overcompensating, right? I've seen some people as well when the left side is weaker than the other side, right? And that comes to posture. So what I wanted to ask you as well too is, what is like a common issue, and I'm going to speak to the runners specifically. What is a common issue that they have, that they continuously come with, and you like, what, like, this is how you fix it? Something that they continue, and I would more so specifically categorize this towards the people that's just starting to run.
Okay. Oh my God, I could answer that so many ways, but I'll say the most important is nobody's butt works. It's that simple. Nobody's glutes work. And as long as the glutes are not working, the body cancels at zero. And if I get too technical, let me know, because it's hard for me to give information without giving it like the real science of it. And I want to do both. So let me know if I need to fix that at all. But the body cancels at zero where the glutes and the hips are. So it's where the body is kind of weightless, if you will. So the glutes support up and distribute function down. So the glutes are the most important muscle in the body, and they are the laziest muscle in the body. And everything around them overcompensates. For every one muscle in the body, there is one muscle default. And for the glutes, that default muscle is the hamstring, which is why hamstrings are the biggest injury for runners. And I'm going to tell you this. I just said plantar fasciitis is the number one running injury. I did a huge masterclass on the top 10 most common running injuries. Plantar fasciitis is number one. But plantar fasciitis is tight calves. Achilles is your hamstring. The Achilles tendon is your hamstring. So tendon is how the bone, muscle to bone is attached to be a tendon. So the hamstrings come down behind your knee, turn 3 into 2, 2 into 1, and become your Achilles, attaching to your bone. So if you have Achilles issue and you have foot pain from the Achilles pulling on it, you have a hamstring issue, but you only have that because your glutes don't fire. So the biggest issue that leads to a lot of problems, runners in the beginner phase have like foot pain, Achilles tendonitis, they have shin splints, those are common. Those are all steps to plantar fasciitis, which is the worst of the lower leg pain. Next thing would be a break, a stress fracture. But that's all because the glutes are not firing and the hamstring is overworking. That's not even talking about your imbalances yet. That's just muscle dysfunction. So and here's the thing, because the glutes are the support, and listen to this, the direct functioning support for your knee is your glute. The structure support for your knee is your quads, your hamstring, your calves. That's the structural support. But the functioning support for your knee is your glute. So the glute dictates your hip and your knee. Where are you running with no glutes? I don't know. But so many runners just get out and go. They think there's no prep to it, especially beginners. Oh, I can run. I'm a human. I can run. I'm going to lace up and go. That's how you break. That's a quick way to break and be done with it. So the biggest way we have to do that is, again, not running to the gym and jumping in a squat rack and doing squats and all these lunges and stuff, which you're going to do wrong anyway, because whether that's why form is so important. And I'm a psycho for form, which is why I've gotten half the jobs I've gotten as a as a consultant. Your body will do whatever it takes for you to not be in pain. So if your glutes don't function, your hip is in a dysfunction. So everything else will work harder, your quads, so that you never fire the glute so you don't bother your hip. That's how the body works. So when someone is doing a lunge, and it's the most easiest, next to squats, the lunge is the most done incorrectly movement ever. Everybody lunges into their knee because it's quad heavy. If they were to sit back and put their knee over their ankle and drive from their heel, they have to call on their glute. Well, the glute doesn't want to do that. So they can't get up and they fall. That's common. That's how you know you're doing it right. Sidebar, everybody, go do it right now. If you are trying to do a lunge and it's easy, it's wrong. If you go to try to do it properly and you almost fall and you wobble, good job, it's right. That's a muscle that needs to be trained. So the biggest thing is to learn how you have to deactivate the hamstring to get the glute to fire. So you got to take the hamstring out of the whole equation. Speaking specifically to runners, sport specific matters. I'm a strength and conditioning coach also. So when sport specific matters. So I train every kind of sport. When I fix a runner, I fix a human, because running is basic human function, walking with extreme velocity. That's all it is. So if you can't run without pain, you ain't walking without pain either. You just don't feel it because you're not pushing it to the limits like you do when you're running for 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours. So when sport specific matters and we're coming to a runner, this is when muscles matter specific to the sport. For a long distance runner, not track and field, for a long distance runner, the only job of the hamstring is to extend out and come back and not hyperextend. That's the only job of the hamstring. So when you're out here doing butt kicks and you're out here doing sprints, those two things don't translate to a long distance run. But you're building the hamstring in an anaerobic, lack of oxygen, short paces to do a long endurance movement. The two don't match. So you're building the muscle for a sport that you're not about to do. And that's how it creates an issue. And then you're building it in dysfunction because your glutes never came in and it's all hamstring heavy. So now they're in dysfunction for stabilizing for the booty and you're building them. And then you want to know why you're in pain. And then your hips start to hurt, knee starts to hurt, everything trickles down. Also, anything from the knee down is a red flag. It's already happening at your hip. You want to feel it from the knee down. You want shin splints. You want heel pain. You want Achilles pain because you do not want hip pain. That I can promise you. So accept it when it's down below and grab it first, but it's only going to happen by addressing your butt first. So there's, you have to get the hamstring out of it. Leave the hamstrings alone. Don't stretch them even. Foam roll them. I'll get into that in a second, but you need to leave them alone so that you can isolate the glute so it can fire on its own without any help from anybody. And when you're doing a squat, start in a chair, sit way back into the chair. Again, if you fall, it's because your glutes are trying to fire and they can't because you haven't trained them to. So there's little itty bitty things that I always find fun, especially when I work with bodybuilders and like they can't do a basic squat. And I'm like, oh, what have you been doing? You know, because it's like you have no function in the muscle. Looks good, has no function. And I call it for booty for no reason. I say there's no reason for these muscles. They're just here looking good, but they have no function. So there's little tricks like that that someone as a beginner could test. Am I doing a squat very easily? Am I doing lunges very easily? It's wrong. You're probably in bad form and you're not calling on the right muscle. So slow down and sit in your pocket, sit in your hip. Make sure you're heel heavy. And you sit into your glutes. If you're falling, that's a good sign. You're going to try. That's how you're going to start to activate your glutes and get the hamstring out of it. That's the most basic way a beginner runner could start to get themselves solid at the most important muscle, which is the glutes, to support their hip function.
Oh my God, I'm probably not the first one to say this, but I was doing it all wrong, Jessica. I was doing it all wrong. Thank you so much for the clarification.
You're welcome.
I like to do takeaways because, you know, again, with so much information being given, you know, my biggest takeaway again from that conversation was the overuse of the hamstrings, and not firing the glutes. And, you know, I've done squats before and you're right. Like, as you're saying this, I'm like, man, I've done that, man. I've overused my hamstrings. I've really stressed my quads, and I'm not activating my glutes enough, right? It's just something that I don't think about it. I have gone for a run and like, man, I'm just gonna go out there and start running and not focusing. So with that being said as well, and I really want to focus on the corrective side of it is, what can we do for our glutes, right? To get them a bit more engaged and to make them active and to take the stresses off of those other muscles.
Stop, no more squat racks. If anybody's in there working out in a gym, no more squat racks. There's no reason to ever be compressing your spine with a bar and then saying to your glutes that already don't work, hey, let me load this entire spine, restrict you from actually being able to extend your low back into a proper seated squat for hips that already don't have support, and I'm overloading it, and then your knees cave. So if your knees cave, that's a sure sign. You should never be loading anything. Stop loading everything. You need to go back to body weight stuff. That's first. And there's a move I call activation, which is when you lay on your back, you pull your knee into your chest. And so when you pull one knee into your chest, you deactivate the other hamstring. So when you pull your knee into your chest and do a single leg hip raise, you're going to start to isolate that glute. So that's the first, you would want to isolate, right? Take everybody out of it. No more bilateral stuff. Do single leg things. Slow the hell down. Slow down. Correction does not need that. You need to be slow. You need to slow down and feel the movement. Make sure you feel, if you get a cramp in it, let it be. Let it talk to you for a second. It'll be on its way. It'll get over it. It'll be fine. Go back to it. Because really in motion, when you're in mobility like that and in a workout like that, when you get a cramp, it's really, blood surges and muscles going, oh, this is new. So you got to give it a minute to get that back together and figure it out. And so isolating single leg actions, body weight, no weights or anything like that. Once you start to feel your body is starting to fire a little bit more, then you could add bands, like the bands that you put around your ankles, and keep it below your knees. When you keep the band around in the calf between the ankle and the knee, like anywhere in that area, you get the whole outside of the leg. And then, your outer hips. When you put it above your knees, you only get the upper part. So I always say to start at that lower end, so you actually get the whole leg engaged for the hips, to everything to fire the whole guy. Then the glutes really get into play, and you can load them better that way from the outside in. So it's not, if I can say, do not do hamstring curls. Do not do weighted machines. Stay away from them, because they're just taking away your core. They're not letting you stabilize and helping you feel where you're not strong, helping you feel where you're not in balance. They're taking that away from you. When you deal with your body, you can feel all those imbalances. And like you made a point earlier, you've seen people weak on one side and strong on the other. Most of those times, the weaker side is only weak because it's overworking, because the other side doesn't work. And so that gets misconstrued because the other side may have more visible muscle. So to the naked eye, you're like, oh, well, that side's strong. There's more muscle on that leg. That must be fine. It's got to be this side. That's not the case. That's just a tree trunk. He ain't moving. That's the problem. So it's how to look at it a little bit deeper and be like, what's going on here? So that's why isolating. So the best way to start correction is to take one leg at a time, one arm movement at a time, one side at a time, to start really getting everybody on their own. Nobody can help anybody. Then everything starts to get expressed. I always say when someone's body starts to hurt and they hear my voice, they're like, oh, everything's going to show up today. We're going to show all of our problems today. So, and it's true. Once the body feels that you're actually listening to it, it'll expose all of its problems. That's the best way to start out. Take the legs out of it. Just do one at a time and go back to body weight. Leave everything, and no braces, free up your body, free up your motion, and let your body show you how restricted it is. And then you'll be like, I should never put weights on this because I can't even lift my arm properly. So just kind of strip it down to bare bone.
Jessica, you made me realize my booty's lazy. I have a lazy booty.
Okay, my job is done.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, I had no idea. And I'm so glad I found you, because I swear to God, at the time I knew the knowledge and I knew what you knew, when I was living in New York, I would have been your client a long time ago.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I
Yeah, no
appreciate that.
problem. I'm telling you, you clearly are an expert. I feel like some people throw these titles around, but no,
Listen
like,
here.
yeah,
Listen here.
you are an expert, and I can
Thank
tell.
you.
I
I
can tell.
appreciate that.
I hope you guys are getting value from this. I want to touch on, because you said you were going to touch on this too, and this is important. So, runners, I hope you're listening to this as well. What is the proper way to foam roll?
Mm. So it needs to be the black roller. It is the strongest roller. Colors matter with foam rollers. Blue is usually like super squishy. White is a waste of time. Anything with little prods on it or cones on it is marketing. It's a waste of time. If it's hollow, there's no give. All money, waste of time. You just need the solid black roller. It is the hardest, most dense roller. You should not be able to squeeze it. That's first. Rollers matter. So you always want, when you properly foam roll, slow down. Everybody again wants to go fast. You have to slow down. And you want to start at your glutes first. And you roll over everything but the joint. So you never roll over your neck joint. You never roll over your elbow or your knee. But you do roll your entire back. You do roll over your hips, because there's a burster outside there, and there's a lot of junk outside there that's protecting it. And you actually have to roll outside your hip. The biggest problem with foam rolling is people don't roll joint to joint. They shorten it. When you shorten it, what you don't roll gets worse. So the tissue gets more hitched up, and it'll be more junky there. And so I've had to elbow right outside people's knees because it's gotten so bad where they can't even bend their knee, just because they were consistently rolling and stopping this punch, a little, like a couple inches above the knee at the outside of the knee. So I have to release that. And also, again, because the IT band, as I said earlier, comes from below the knee all the way up outside the knee, outside each leg, covers 80% of the glute, crosses the spine and attaches and crosses over to the other shoulder, you have to roll your whole body. The whole biomechanics of how a human body moves is dictated by the IT band. So a runner has to roll their whole body. Everything you want to do, a basic foam rolling all the way through your back, down both sides of your legs, your hamstrings, your quads, your Achilles, your calves, your armpits, all that stuff. You want to roll, and you don't want to roll your neck or anything like that, but you want to come up to the base, like that, the biggest vertebrae that you feel at the top, right, the base. You want to come up there. And once you do that, then you would work out. Like, then you would start to do your isolation, and in terms of like taking one leg and working on that other leg, because that's your gateway to getting into that spot. If you don't release the tension, you'll never get to the muscle or joint activity, because it's tissue first, tissue first, joint second, muscle is last. So you feel it muscle first because it's deeper. By the time you feel muscle, the real issue has been there for a while. So you have to go through tissue to get to the joint and mobility for you to even get that muscle to fire properly. So when someone wants to stretch because they feel pain in their hamstrings, they're setting up for more of a strain. Because when you're stretching a restricted muscle, tissue is restriction, dictates mobility at the joint. So if the joint is restricting your mobility, where are you stretching to? Nowhere. It's an illusion. And you're just straining the glute, the insertions of your hamstring into your calf and then your glute. That's all you're doing. So muscle is tightness, you stretch out muscle. Tissue is tension, has to be pressed out. The two don't do the same thing. And a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't roll, but I stretched. Idiot. So you just hurt yourself. Like, that don't mean anything. And that's a dancer telling you that. And I work with a lot of dancers. So no, a lot of the time the hypermobility is an issue. We need to actually get some stability there. We need to get some muscle mass there to create some stability around the joint, or the joint rots, basically. Right? I have a severe list. Anybody who comes to us who's already feeling hip pain, you're on my severe list. So right now, I always have a number 1 severe, and everybody's always interested. Who's most severe? Because it's a competition, apparently. And person who was most severe was was debating a hip replacement. I got him when he was at the point of debating it. So my job was basically to see, was there anything left to work with this man's leg? And I can proudly say the conversation is off the table. He's got full hip flexion, full use of his leg. He's working through it. There's been 8 years before he came to me, 8 years of pain before he came to me. So I got to redo all of that, but conversation's off the table. I got something to work with. We can work with it. But because of what you said earlier, someone saw the balance right to left and was like, oh, that side's visibly stronger. Leave that side alone. Let's work on this hypermobile side. They rotted that away to nothing when the real problem was the other side.
That is wow.
And this it's taking the time to dig, and that's what I do. It's what Run Pain Free does, is we dig. No one dug for me. That's why I dig for people. That's what people come to us for, because we take the time to figure out where is it going, figure it out. And so that's the biggest thing for sure. The foam
Guys,
rolling has to be first.
guys, if you're listening to this, especially if you're running, you live in the tri-state area of New York City in the United States, whether you live in Jersey or Connecticut, you need to find Jessica, because I'm telling you right now, and I don't have it, it's rare during a podcast. I'm like, this person right now is you need to see them if you're having these issues. But 100%, she's really giving you a lot of valuable information and in detail. And I feel like, honestly, like when I was going through these things, like I would have been one of your consistent clients.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you for that. And another thing I want to hone in on, and that's very important, and I feel like, especially with novice runners, and even now, too, even myself included, any runners that's been running for some time, when you said marketing, now something stood out to me. I feel like a lot of these companies take advantage of runners. And you tell me if I'm wrong, but one, I always felt like the KT ban was BS. I don't know if it works.
No, it's BS.
Yeah, I don't feel like applying tape on an area works. So what I want to ask you is, speak to the KT tape. Maybe give me your top 3 most marketed things towards runners. That's okay. BS.
Stability. I'll tell you right now, stability sneakers, KT tape, braces, shots. So, I mean, I could go on, but I'll give you 4.
Okay.
Those are all hurting you. KT tape was brought to federal government for false advertising, and the federal government won. So they were taken off the shelves for a while, and they just recently started to advertise again. That's Google. You can look at that Google. There's a reason for that. So they had to change their packaging and all this stuff. The problem here is it's $1 billion industry for a reason. Running is the most global sport. It's everywhere. I mean, again, I'm international. We've been international for 10 years. I got clients in the Philippines. Like, I've talked to people in New Zealand. So it's all over. And then we do a lot with the world majors. A couple of our runners will have they would have had it this year, if not for what happened, but they will have their world major next year. I have a couple of runners, which is a 1% of runners who actually get that. So we have runners everywhere. And I tell you this, they all have the same problems. They all have the same foot problems, same hamstring issues, everything, because it's highly marketed. So here's what the reason is. This is done in professional sports. People who are making $800 million a year to play today and play tomorrow, the exact same ability, the exact same optima. You have to be optimal both days. They have to push to the limits no matter what day it is. They have to perform. So they put tape on those people to get through that tournament. And as soon as that tournament is over, there's someone like me waiting there to rip that tape off and we go right back to the room to fix stuff. No one's living in tape, but they use it because they have to perform in that tournament that's 4 days long, in that playoff game, in that World Series. They have to play. They need to perform. We'll fix it later. So people at the local level see that and they're like, oh, well, so-and-so does it, so should I. Compression sleeves. That will be number 5.
Oh, wow. And I've used those.
I know you have. I know you have. Oh. Come by me at the marathon. I rip them right off your legs. I rip them right off. Mile 22. Oh, they're coming off now because you can't walk. So they're coming off. But yes. Yes. There's so many. These are such marketed things. And it's sad because it's taking advantage of runners. It takes advantage of them because they want to feel like an athlete. And I'm like, you are already an athlete. Dude, you're doing something that NFL people have bucket lists to run the New York City Marathon. You do it. Like, it's a big deal. Why are you dumbing it down? It's a big deal. It's already a big deal. You don't need all this extra stuff because LeBron does it. You see LeBron's feet. He's turned out. He needs to get fixed too. So like, yeah, but there's always people who look at that and they're like, oh, well, if he does it or she does it, so should I. No. You have a job to go to. You have a family to take care of. They go home and go to sleep. You go to work. Big difference. You have to take care. You don't have the time to take care of you the way they do. So they can push themselves to the limit where they use that type of stuff for that moment, and then it comes off. No one's living in tape. When I saw CC Sabathia with the amount of KT tape on his knee at the tennis last year at the US Open, I thought he was wearing pants. I've never seen any, I was like, whoever did that should be ashamed. Whoever did that to that man's leg should be ashamed. And not for nothing, he's a pitcher. He's one-sided. That's an imbalance. Like, there's a problem there. That's a training, like, that's a mechanics, that's a training, that's trainers. Like, people, they need to check that. So just to put all that tape on him, it restricts hip mobility, knee mobility, ankle mobility, and then the opposite shoulder. And someone like that who's getting paid millions and millions of dollars, they see that, and then all these runners see it, and they're, oh, CC's doing it. So, and then what do they say? Oh, CC's running the New York City Marathon. He's training for the New York City half. And so all the runners are like, oh, well, we should definitely use it. And I'm like, no. I can't. Yes, no. All it is basically is if I was to come to you and be like, okay, let me grab where that pain is that you want to put the tape on. It's the equivalent of me putting my hands on you and saying, let's go run. If I'm not going to live with you like that for the rest of your life with my hands on your shoulder, then you can't run like that either. And I can't tell you how many runners have said to me, I never used it before. And I used it for this one race. And when I ripped it off, I had pain in my hip, my knee, my ankle that I never had before. I know. It's an illusion. The reason why it's all strappy is because it's trying to mimic fascia. The pattern of fascia. Yeah. But I'm telling you to foam roll out. Right. Yeah, but I'm telling you to foam roll. Exactly. And so what they think, they pull on it to try to give the illusion that the strain is off the insertion of the joint. So then you go run, but you run using everything else 10 times more now because you stopped the mobility of that joint. So everything around that had to work. So you limped, ran, you used the other hip too much, you locked up that extension of that knee, you couldn't extend it, you couldn't knee drive, you couldn't come back. So now that psoas is whacked out and your SI joint is off. Now your feet are off, now your calf is tight. You probably should, the amount of stuff that goes on from using it on one spot, let alone the monstrosities I see. It's amazing to me. People don't break like right then and there.
Jessica, is it? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll let you finish that, and then I want you to, just let me know when you finish this thought. Is there anything on the market that works?
No.
Okay.
No, that's the easy one.
Wow, that's amazing.
You have to deal with you. You have to deal with you. There's a reason why in the NFL, I don't know if you watch Hard Knocks, but
yeah, I do.
Okay, so then I liked last year when they did it. There was a couple of dudes that were injured in training camp, and who did the coach and the doctor go to? The trainers.
The trainers, yeah.
What's he doing? Is he doing his work? Is he in there doing the work he's supposed to be doing in the weight room? No, cut. Like, there's a reason for that they pay trainers to do that. They pay people like me to watch that athlete to make sure they're doing the right thing. And if they're not doing it, bye. Because there's nothing out there that's going to change how you move but you could skirt by, like I said, when they put the tape on and they give you a shot because you're $1 million player and they're shooting your leg. You think Kevin Durant wasn't shot up before he tore that Achilles? Okay, yeah. I don't even know how many times it had to happen before it happened because they're elites, you know?
Exactly.
So their bodies can go further before they break. But for that level of athlete to break, that to me is such an egregious problem with training at that level that bothers me. Like, it bothers me that they would let somebody's body like that deteriorate for the sake of, that's my opinion. That's my professional opinion. There's nothing out there that's going to fix that but you have to put the work in.
Well, you look at too, and I also look at, and I'm pretty sure because you have vast knowledge in this area and with sports, like when Kevin Durant in the finals last year when Golden State played Toronto, and against, like, I don't know why he went back out there, but he went back out there I think it was game 5 or 6, and he broke his, like, was it his ankle or his lower, I don't know if it was the fibia or the tibia. One of his legs got broken, and again, it was like, okay, who misdiagnosed him or who allowed him, right, to go back out on the field to do that? And a lot of times. Yeah, a lot of times I talk to Dr. Aaron Horschig. That's gonna that episode's gonna air a little bit later. But awesome. Yeah, he said something similar to what you were saying as well too. Is like the body is an indicator that something's going wrong. And a lot of times with what they're doing is they're just masking the pain. Like when we're looking at these athletes, it's like, okay, it's only some time when you could mask the pain, but then the problem isn't being fixed.
All right. Exactly. That's what we do here. We don't mask anything. I'm ripping everything off. I'm ripping everything off. I've ripped off. People have come. We do huge events here in the city. Unfortunately, not this year, but we do huge events in the city. And there was what people have come with tape on. I'm ripping it off. Not in my fight. No, I cannot see it. Not on my time. We're not doing this today. And I rip it off. I see a brace. I'm ripping it off because you need to expose what's wrong. Stop shutting your body up. It's all masking it. And there's nothing out there it's all just giving you an illusion. It's a sugar pill to make you feel okay for the moment, but then you can't walk the next day, or you have a problem sitting at work the next day. You can't drive your car the next day. Like that's not living. That's not living. So that's what we do here at Run Pain Free. We work with youth because there's a lot of youth that are pushed to a limit because they have youth. They're not getting taken care of. They're getting pushed. And so all those issues, I get that when they're 40, 50 years old. Now I see what you did when you were 12 and you were like a great athlete at 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, that you got pushed for some stats for a middle school. Are you serious? Like you cannot be serious. So I like to get them young because I get to train them young and get them thinking about their bodies early, get them health-wise early for their bodies. And then they're able to not have hip issues and knee issues later on, shoulder issues later on. It's all a masking. It's all a masking, and it's sold because it's glorified by the sport industry, but people don't realize they're doing that because they need to perform. They're getting paid millions of dollars to perform like that. You go to work. It's a very different, very lifestyle.
It's two different lanes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like,
Stop
and
comparing.
especially people, exactly. Like people that, again, and when I ran my first marathon, it was a bucket list, right? Like, at most I was an athlete in junior high and playing, football and things of that nature. But, the average person that decides, hey, I want to run a marathon or I want to run a half marathon, they don't have the lifestyle or the paycheck of an athlete. So like you said, guess what? If your form is off, right, or you're not addressing the glutes, right, or the correctiveness of your body mechanics, you got to go into work the next day. And guess what? You can't go into work because after you ran this marathon, you're hurting everywhere. And now you got to take maybe a week off and you pay someone to correct everything that you've done. You've given us a lot of information, and I know we have a limited amount of time, and I want to get to the nutrition side. So I feel like you've given so much information, and this is for free, that there's more than enough for people to come see you. I don't want to give away too much. So I want to get to nutrition real quick because I know you're an expert in that area as well. So speaking to runners, what are runners doing wrong in terms of nutrition, and how can that be corrected?
They're not eating enough for their activity. I think runners, I know runners don't eat enough for the level of output they put. So even the runner who's starting to run to lose weight, you have to eat to lose weight. Whether you're active or not, you have to eat to lose weight. So when you add an activity to that, you have to eat for that level of activity. If you don't eat enough, your body will reserve your weight and eat other things. And I actually just did a podcast. I did a whole month of June for us as nutrition. So everything about our podcast is about nutrition for this reason, because it's very misunderstood by runners specifically. People feel like they can eat like cupcakes and donuts and chips and stuff because they're a runner. Okay, then you'll stay looking exactly the way you are and you'll run, but you're not going to lose weight. It's not going to change anything. And you're definitely not giving your body the fuel it needs to do the activity you want it to do. And I do think nutrition and injuries they're cohesive, because you have to give your body the effort. You have to give your body the work to put out for you. And if you don't give your body that intake on either side, it's not going to work. It's going to break. It's going to feel like crap. You're going to feel like exhausted. And so when your body doesn't have the proper nutrients, especially carbohydrates and glycogen, you don't have the energy to sustain endurance for, again, 5-6 hours. An average marathon for an average runner is anywhere between 4.5 to 6 hours. That's average. Of course, you have people that are pre-4, under 4, and then you have the back of the packers, if you will. But still, that's hours and hours and hours of running that no one's accounting for. Water doesn't cut it. Water is not, you have to have electrolytes, and that's not sugar stuff like Gatorade. That's like coconut water. That's actually natural electrolytes and good potassium and good fats. So there's a lot of misconception that I can eat what I want and I'm going to be, I can run and I'll lose weight and I don't need, I'm running so I can have those cupcakes and I can, they give you bagels at the end of every race or beer at the end of every race. So it's not really promoting the idea that like you have to eat a certain way, but there is a level of, and it's about, again, like go out and do it. Like eat like you want to eat, go run, and then do what I'm saying. Go have a sweet potato and go run. Feel the difference. Like it's a different level of energy. It's a sustained level of energy. I don't believe in goos at all. My runners eat pickles on their run. They shove it in their pockets. They shove it wherever they can have. They have a couple of pickles. They have a couple of pretzels. They have a couple of tomatoes or something. And it's all they need for an entire marathon because it's sustainable food. You have to chew it, which means you have to process it. It's different than shoving sugar down your throat. That's just liquid sugar that, messes up your stomach anyway. So there's a lot of these, again, marketing things that just flood the industry and people just pick up on it. But you have to eat for your level of activity. And if you're not eating for that, you're going to eat muscle instead of using proper energy to actually burn fat and build muscle. So there's the basic is no one's eating enough.
And I'm gonna assume that you said part of this because I know it, but the pickles and the pretzels, that's just for the salts, right? That we lose as we're running, right?
And salt and potassium.
And potassium. In regards to also the, I won't say any companies' names, but electrolyte tabs. Are those beneficial, or should we just stick to the coconut water?
No, I think anything that's processed is a waste of time. You want the realest form of anything as possible. I applaud those races that actually pass out coconut water now instead of Gatorade. I'll say the words for you. Yeah. I applaud that because it's chemicals. It's just those sugar drinks are chemicals, and coconut water is natural. It's as natural as we're going to get our hands on outside of grabbing a coconut. It's natural electrolytes. For me, it's a swap for a banana. Bananas are very constipating, very bloating, binding. They're the highest in fat fruit. You swap a banana with one medium-sized coconut water, you have twice the potassium of one banana. You have natural electrolytes and potassium in there, and there's sodium in there. So and that it's without bloating. It's hydrating. Like there's so much more gain from switching that. If you're eating a banana for cramping, eat better because you're cramping because you're calling on energy systems that are inefficient. That's one. And two, how about you actually replenish yourself with good hydration, which is adding the coconut water to your water every day. That's the difference. It's more, get to the more real source of it. You'll need less of it and you'll feel better.
Okay. Before, during, and after a run, because you gave me the pickles and the pretzels, what should you have before it, during it, and after, just to help aid the body in terms of proper nutrition?
For a marathon length or any run?
I would say, yeah, let's do marathon length. Let's do that.
So for a marathon length, I always say the dinner before should be a burger and a sweet potato. The dinner before, the night before. And then the morning of, a baked sweet potato. I always say some people actually do sometimes people cut up some apples and like stir it up, like saute it and add it to it for a little bit of extra crunch, but both are slow release carbohydrates. So they're going to be sustainable for your blood sugar and they're hearty. So it's longer, it lasts longer. So sweet potato in the morning, full big sweet potato with some cinnamon on it or a little bit of butter, it totally goes a long way. And then during, obviously, pickles, oranges are really good. I pass them out at the marathon and I cut them so they can just suck on it and toss the skin. Because you really that's, again, the most natural. It's different. One glass of orange juice is the equivalent to 8 oranges. I don't know why you want to drink that. I don't.
It's too much processed sugar too.
Too much processed sugar and hello diabetes. Yeah. Like the day you can sit down and eat 8 oranges in one sitting, okay, then I'll shut up. But that's not going to happen. You're going to be in the bathroom, so I don't want to hear it. So all you need is a couple, and I actually put 2 in a baggie and I hand them out, and that's all you actually need. Pretzels are great. They're kind of dry, so it's to your tasting. But I say oranges and pickles, coconut water on the run, and then post run, You want to have a good protein, good veggies, and you want some more starch because you have to replenish what you just did. And you just burnt like thousands of calories, depending on your weight and what you have, your pace and all that good stuff. So you want to replenish. So you want to have like a good piece of chicken, if not 2 pieces of chicken, probably between 6 and 8 ounces of chicken. And you want to have good veggies, a mixture of veggies, and either a sweet potato. Again, it's a favorite of mine because it's sustainable, but good brown rice is good too. And I make brown rice with chicken stock or chicken broth, not with water. So it gives it more hardiness to it, and it's easier to digest also. So those would be great afterwards. Not whatever you eat right after you're done working out, even if it's just an hour workout, goes directly to your muscles. So you want to feed your body really good nutrients, lean food, because it goes right to your muscles. If you eat squishy foods, if you consistently eat a bagel at the end of a run, that's why you squishy.
What about steel cut oats? Is a good carb? Because I know the starchy carbs are bad. Is that another myth?
That's a myth. That's an
it's
absolute myth.
Oh,
here's
no, I
why.
throw away the bag of steel cut oats. Oh my goodness, I thought I was doing so good.
It's a bag of heavy, bloating, constipating sugar. That's what it is. So here's the reason why people get away with it is because runners. So like, again, your body will maintain what you have because of the activity. That doesn't mean it's doing you any good. That's an illusion. So I actually don't allow oatmeal unless you're running 10 plus miles that day, that moment, like directly after you're done eating it. You better be on your way out the door, because you have to use starch. So starch is for energy. So you have to eat starch pre-run, and you need your protein and lean vegetables that after. You don't want starch after, because you will bloat. So a lot of women that are like, oh, I swell when I work out. No, you ate a bagel after you worked out, so you're swelling. Like, that's why that's happening. You have to eat your lean meats and good veggies and stuff after your workout, because it's going directly to your muscles. So I don't like oatmeal at all. Sure, not that I don't like the taste. I don't like it at all nutritionally. I think I know it's a bunch of BS. It's very constipating. It's very bloating. Have you ever not eaten the full bowl and let it sit?
See, I've had to learn, right? Portion, because I was so bad with portion previously. I'd have like you said, a bowl of oatmeal, and I'd probably go through half of it. So what I do is I have these little mini Tupperware cups, and I only do about a quarter, about half an inch, and then I fill the rest with like nuts and berries and granola. That's normally what I'll put in that, and that'll be my little oat bowl before a run. Like I'll normally eat that. Is that okay?
That's actually, I've never heard anybody eat that little.
Yeah, because I had to learn.
That's good though.
Yeah, I had to learn. I'm eating way too much oatmeal, but I thought right prior to our conversation, like, okay, well, this is a better carb than, a starchy carb, like maybe a potato, or like most people have French fries. Like you said, after their run, they'll go have a burger and French fries,
right?
And they feel terrible. And you mentioned sweet potatoes. What's some other good carbs that we should be having?
Apples, pears.
Okay.
Apples, pears, they are slow release. Anything that's slow release and sustainable and hardy. So apples and pears, I always say, for any runs under 6 miles, add peanut butter or almond butter to the apple or pear. If it's between 6 and 8 miles, anything over 10 miles, you want to start playing with half a baked sweet potato, then a full baked sweet potato, and then a baked sweet potato with some chopped up fruit on it a little bit, or raisins or nuts. Dates, huge. Dates are huge because they're very meaty, and you can have 1 or 2 of those guys and like be good to go sometimes, instead of the apple or the pear, or even on the run for a marathon for a long distance. But yeah, I would rather you have an apple over oats. Even with what you just said, I would still say have an apple instead.
Okay.
Because it's simple sugar. You're fit. You're going to burn through that like this.
Yeah.
It's simple sugar. And again, a runner is constantly burning so much. So when you eat simple, you never use it. It's gone. By the time you blink, the shit's gone. Oh, it's gone. Edit that out.
It's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about
I did good.
Yeah. You're not
Oh,
the
I
first
get
person
very
to curse on.
frustrated.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
good.
you're not the first person to curse on our program, and it's for a good effort. Don't worry about
Okay,
it.
I get very
Yeah.
frustrated, as
No,
I'm
you're
sure you're seeing.
passionate, and I appreciate it. I love it. Yeah.
I have 80,000 hours in injuries alone. That's not including what I've done with
Yeah.
nutrition. So it's
And
all I've done. So I literally come from that place where I literally am an actual expert. Like I've
no,
done
you
nothing but
are.
I really put
Hands
everything into
down.
it.
I got one more fact of fiction for you because this is so
Sure.
common in the running community. Carb loading. And
Mm.
and if you are gonna carb, okay, so you're already saying no. I won't even ask the second part because I was gonna say what carb should you be having because I did that my first marathon. So my story is interesting because the first year I registered for the marathon was Hurricane Sandy and it was canceled. That's the first time the New York City
Oh,
Marathon was canceled, right?
canceled. Yeah.
So I did it the year after, and yeah, I went out. I went to Little Italy in the Bronx, and I got some pasta, and like I felt terrible. Like I
Yes, you
felt
did.
like I was like my time was like five and some change, and then like I consulted with some people and did some nutrition, and like it was an hour improvement the following year. So I knew I did something wrong in terms of carb loading, but some runners like go by carb loading. And what are your thoughts on that? Is it beneficial or not?
No, first of all, it's an excuse to eat macaroni, and that's an Italian Sicilian telling you that. Okay, that's first. And I actually did a podcast on carbs. Period. Because of this, it's such a misconception. First of all, if you're going to carb load, carb with the right food, like again, sweet potatoes. So like when you're again, pasta is simple sugar. It's uncooked pasta is fiber, straight fiber. When it's cooked, it becomes a starch, but it's simple. So it's burned right through, especially a runner, even more a runner who's been running for 6 months, 30, 40 miles a week and is about to run a marathon the next day. You're going to, before you even go to sleep, you're going to burn through it. But here's the problem. There's an insulin surge that happens. So as soon as you take in all that sugar, the insulin's like, oh, we have a lot to break down, but it's simple. So you process it super fast and it's done with, and you have this excess insulin that's just like floating around and waiting, and then that creates the blood sugar spike. And so then you want more of that, so your body wants more of what you just ate, so you eat even more and you think you need more, that's why you're eating it. No, it's called insulin, it's calling for it because you just ate too much. Simple sugar, in and out, gone. So you actually get nothing from that the next day in your race. That's why you feel like crap. You didn't get anything out of it. So carb loading is a myth. And if you should be eating carbohydrates, but you should be eating complex carbohydrates with it, a sweet potato, vegetables, fruits. Those are complex carbohydrates. Anything white is not complex, it's simple. So if you're eating anything white, it's a waste of time and a waste of energy, and you're using it as an excuse to eat. Stop it. Then if you're like, oh, well, I swear by it, half the macaroni sauce is made with meat. That's coming from another Sicilian Italian. So the marinara sauce is made from a meat sauce that they take out the meat and use the sauce. So watch out there, everybody out there who doesn't want to eat meat and stuff. You might be startled by that, but that's most of the case. So that infused iron into the sauce is what could give you energy, if at all. If you're like, and then those are like, well, I do eat a meat sauce with my, okay, then even then the meat and the sauce is what gave you the energy, if at all. It was never the macaroni. It wasn't. Macaroni put you right to sleep. That's all it did, is put you right to sleep. But if you had any energy from it at all, it's because you had a meat sauce or you had meat in the sauce you didn't know you ate. One of the two. Other than that, then had nothing to do with the macaroni at all. You have to eat the complex. That's what you want: sweet potatoes, brown rice, vegetables, fruits. That's what's going to give you good, sustainable energy without the spikes and the crashes.
There we go. Jessica, thank you so much. Like we
You're very
honestly like
welcome.
this was a very insightful episode. I do have, I have people throughout the health and wellness industry that listen to this podcast. A lot of them are runners, and I'm telling you now, if you're a runner, there's a lot of value in this episode. And if you live on the East Coast or in the tri-state area in New York City, you need to seek her out because there was a lot of value in this episode. Even me, and I've been running for over 10 years now.
Good for
I'm
you.
learned. Yeah, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you, and even so much stuff that I've been doing wrong. That honestly, like the information you have, your expertise, your experience, it's valuable. So I thank you for that. With that being said, guys, we went over a lot today. um, again, firing, the glutes not firing, like pay attention to that. Also, she exposed a lot of myths. Stop going out and buying all of these the KT bands and the vapor flies and spending 200 and some odd dollars, right? I am a recipient of, and I've used it, sleeves and think these things were amazing. It's making me really reevaluate that. Even down to my shopping list, I may not go with a pickle on a run just because it's too stinky, but I may start, I may start bringing some pretzels. And again, like, yeah, we've probably runners think about just on gear alone how much money you spend on that in the races, and then in addition to that, the accessories that are not needed. And she was really helpful at exposing that. And finally, the nutrition. She just really broke down how the body breaks down the food that you put into your body, how you feel, and something as simple, right? The foods that are organic and readily available to us: oranges, apple, pear, and I would say organic peanut butter, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
probably what I would go with.
Yeah.
Organic peanut butter. Let those be your go-to. But again, this is something. This is an episode that you should honestly save, make it as a favorite, and then I am going to direct you to her website, runpainfreenow.com. You need to look to check that out as well. And then if there's any other resources that you have available for the public, please share that with them now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. That was an awesome recap. Thank you. So yeah, guys, just eat everything you possibly can. Also, and I just want to add really quick, iron is needed. We need it for oxygen transport. So especially when you're running, you need consistent energy. And as long as you have iron to transport that energy around, you'll be good to go. A lot of the times the cramping comes along and it's a misconception that you just have lactic acid buildup. That's actually not the case. It's an inefficient system for energy that you're calling on because you've depleted all your glycogen because you didn't eat the right carbs before your run. So Run Pain Free Academy is our international online community where injured runners come, and it's a safe haven for them where it's off online. It's not Facebook, and it's monitored. We have topics of discussion. We put all of our information in there, and we are having a huge, huge training summit coming out in July. So that people could look for that at runpainfreeacademy.com. So, and it's a place where everybody can, no matter where you are in the world, you can get help from us in one way or another. If you're not in New York City, that's a great way to find us on there. And it's for everybody to come and feel safe and feel supported, and it's where you can really learn what's going on with your body inside and out, nutritionally, injury correction and prevention, and pick up the proper training habits to actually run for life. That's what we all want to do. We all want to sustain a good, healthy lifestyle and be active. And that's what we really go on hard about there at the Run Pain Free Academy. So runpainfreenow.com if you're in the tri-state area, and runpainfreeacademy.com for anywhere else. We're here to help.
There you go. And I'm telling you now, if you live in the New York City area and you have not sought her, and you're a runner and you're experiencing pain, or you need help with proper nutrition, you need to seek out Jessica Marie Rose Leggio and find her immediately. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for coming on. I am so glad you decided to do this show because and I'm pretty sure you've done other podcasts, but you have certainly helped our listeners.
Thank you.
And then this conversation not only will be on our podcast show, but it'll be on our YouTube channel. So you can go back, rewind, listen to it. If there's something that she said that you kind of want to hone in on, you can always go back to it. But again, thank you for being on. I'm so honored and I'm grateful that you took time out of your day to speak with me. And, definitely we'll be in contact for sure. Because I will always get questions like this and down the line as well, because you have such an impressive resume. I would like to have you on the show on a future episode in a later season. But thank you so much for being
on. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate your intentions. I like your flow. I love your mission. So I appreciate being a part of it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And guys, again, make sure that you guys support. You go out there, you check her out. If you have these issues, support her, like, share this episode when it comes out as well, and support her as well. And then again, If you guys would like to know more information about the show, you can always email us at fithealthwell@gmail.com. If you always want to check out our content or previous content, you can go to our website at fithealthwell.com. And then you can also follow us on Instagram, fithealthwell, and that's a period in between fit, health, and well. And then also our Facebook page is Fit Health Well. Thank you guys for listening again. This was a very, very insightful episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. And until the next episode, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.